Turn the camera on and we can see you. Ed, you got your microphone on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you good.
Okay, good. I had a hard time getting on.
We've had 8 to 10 people there. I don't know why they can't get on. I posted the link to get on.
What I just noticed on when you go to the Hangouts home, there's a thing that says Video Hangouts View All, and it says join a video call. Yes.
I don't know. I just posted it up on YouTube and I sent out invitations, people that get in. I don't know how. I'm new to this. I've been trying to figure this out for about 2 months now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can't see you though. Must not have my camera on.
No. What I noticed too is there's a thing that says Video Hangouts on the main page,
Right.
and it says you could join your page.
Oh, I don't know how people get on it really. I know sometimes we have 8 to 10 people on here, and then sometimes we don't. Well, Thomas found out how to get on.
Yeah, I'd made it this time.
Good. Where does people have to go to get on? I'm sending invitations out, and I see sometimes 10, 15 people, but I can't see them.
I think I just went exactly what he said. I went to the video hangouts, and it showed up right at the top on mine.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to see if I can maybe tell everybody what's going on here, if I can get back there again.
Are you on the Fat Bee Man's group? On Facebook?
Maybe. I don't know. I may be.
If you are, post it up there. David usually gets in here, and he posted up there. I just posted it on my on that group.
Okay.
Most people are more high tech than I am.
Give me just a minute here.
There must be people scanning everywhere because the numbers are, the viewers going up and down, up and down. I see Steve had found us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Steve.
Okay. It looks like Don sent me a link.
I sent links to just about everybody that's unfollowing and that.
Yeah, I got the notification, but then I couldn't find the link. Thanks, Don.
Well, if you look at on the Fat Bee Man's group, I usually post it up there when I get ready to go on with a link.
Okay.
There's a lot of
I'll
people
try and
out
find it in
there
the
a
future.
lot more savvy with the high-tech stuff.
Looks like
I
some
don't know
people
why
are
my camera's not working.
hopefully, hopefully some other people will get in there.
Mario has joined us. Has anybody gotten problems with hive beetles in their hives this time of the year?
Yes, I do.
I have just posted a video that I done out in the bee yard today where a hive that hadn't been checked for 4 to maybe 6 days, it had an inch of maggots in the bottom from the small hive beetles. I wasn't going to post it, but my wife said it's not a good idea, and I thought I'd post it on YouTube to show people what it actually looks like, and also how quick it takes a hive over.
Yeah, I've got beetle blasters, and I only have 2 hives. I got beetle blasters in each one, and I put Swiffer pads in. I have a Swiffer pad, and they get caught in those Swiffer pads, and they get tangled up.
Well, I haven't used any beetle control at all for 2 years. I used to use those beetle traps that I make with the boric acid, but I've been running them basically for 2 years with nothing to see how the bees are going to manage them by themselves without no interference. The problems that we have is we're running 1, 2, or 3 frames to a hive, and they're basically for mating newts and mating queens out. So if you don't build your population up in there, they're borderline all the time to have problems. But that's the first one that we actually had. If anybody else has got a question, whoever's not asking a question, mute your microphone so we don't get no feedback. We'll answer as many questions as we can do. And don't be afraid to ask a question. We're talking about hive beetles, problems with the hives tonight. So anybody that's having any kind of problems, we'll discuss them and hope to come to a good thing here.
Well, my only problem is I have ants.
What are you running, screen bottom boards?
No, just regular wood.
Regular wood? How high is your hive off the ground? About knee high?
It's a 10-inch cinder block.
You need to get them up at least to your knee. And if you just got a few ants in there, you can use cinnamon up in your feeder or up in your top board. That will help repel them. It won't hurt your honey.
It won't kill the bees or hurt them?
Cinnamon? No. It'll repel your ants. If you don't want to put nothing in the hive, you can take motor oil and put it around your cement block, or even take some grease and grease it up a little bit.
Okay, I'll try the cinnamon then.
You know, cinnamon, I use hive top feeders, so basically the feeder, it's sealed itself. And if ants do get up there when you're feeding, I just sprinkle a little cinnamon around there, and it repels them. I mean, I eat cinnamon on my cereal in the morning. It don't kill me.
I have used cinnamon for ants also, Don.
I try to do a
you
lot
have to
of.
reapply.
What we try to do is do a lot of natural type treatments that's not going to affect the bees, where you can have honey in the hive, you know, or open brew without endangering your hive.
When's the best time of the year to do that oxalic vaporizer?
I say anytime that, actually, we looked at the dates on some of our hives out there. We went around and started doing the first oxalic acid vaporizing treatment today. And some of the dates on them was June and July of 2014. So basically, if you've never done it, all you have to do is vaporize them at least every 3 weeks for 3 treatments, and then you get most of them knocked down. It's a 100% kill, and it won't hurt the bees. You can vaporize them anytime the bees are flying. Winter time, as long as you have bees flying, it's not going to hurt with the honey on or open brood.
Well, these are new bees that I installed in April. Would it help them go through the winter if I do it?
Well, you shouldn't have mites in there with a package. Was it a package or was it a nuke?
It was a package.
A package normally is not going to have mites. Now, if you're wanting to do it as organically as possible, you can dust that package down before you install it with powder sugar. That'll knock the mites off, but to me, it's not doing any actual killing of the mites, so it causes, more ants to be around the hive because you got that powder sugar falling on the ground. Does that help? Give you a good answer there?
Oh, it does. It does. I appreciate it.
I put lots of packages in, and I'm not concerned about mites until the third to fourth week. And then when you start getting bees hatching, if you have a high mite count, then you'll start to notice a little bit. But it's not normally a problem.
I think what I'm planning on doing is in the springtime next year, I'm gonna contact you. I'm gonna order a couple queens off you.
Okay. The queens right now, we're selling a good bit of queens, and I try to explain to people right now this year is kind of different than most years. People are coming up and they say, I have very spotty brood, queen's not laying, not finding no eggs, the queen must be failing. The queen is not failing. There's so much honey coming in as the bees are bringing the honey in. As one bee hatches out, they're backfilling with honey. So basically, if you're not doing a checkerboard, you're not going to get no brooding there. The brood slowly gets less and less. Anybody else got some?
Got a question, Don.
Okay.
I've heard you say that you feed all the time, and I'm feeding quite a bit, and I was just wondering, how can you be sure that you're not getting sugar in your honey? I like to harvest a little honey also.
Well, I've showed students you can basically tell when a honey flow starts and stops. If you go out there and take a honey bear and just put you a line of honey across the entrance, and I guarantee you, if there's a honey flow, they'll walk right through it. Now, you can do the same thing with sugar water. But if there's no honey flow, they'll line right up there like a bunch of little piggies, and they'll just gobble it down. That's how I can tell when a honey flow starts and stops within 10 to 20 minutes. Also, the bees are not going to take sugar water if there's nectar coming in.
But if there's not nectar coming in, they will put sugar water up in the honey chamber.
Sometimes they will, but they're going to use it basically to feed the brood. Okay. I'm starting to get less and less honey or sugar water going into honey because I'm starting to wean bees off of sugar. And I'm actually, if you hear in my videos, I'm saying this darn honey's in the way. I'm basically starting to feed more and more honey back to bees and having better results than trying to feed. But if you have no honey, sugar is going to be the substitute. It keeps your bees from dying. Whether you like to feed sugar or whether you don't like to feed it, it's necessary to keep them alive.
Okay.
Each person's going to be in a different area where you could be down the road 4 or 5 miles from me and you could be getting a tremendous honey flow and my bees could be starving. Also, number of hives that you're running. I'm running 200 to 500 hives here, and I'm producing basically queens and nukes. So honey's clear at the bottom of my list. There's just no money in the honey. If you're going to make honey, once the honey flows on and you want to make it, just stop feeding for a week.
Yeah, don't.
Go ahead and ask a question.
What's the price of honey right now?
What's the price of what?
Of honey.
I didn't understand you.
What's the price of honey?
The price of honey?
Yeah.
I sell quarts of honey for $20. Comb in it, I get 25. But I'm basically not in the honey business.
Yeah, I know.
If you sell honey, I have students that get into the honey. If you're going to make honey, sell the best honey, sell it in Ross Rounds or a high dollar honey. Ross Rounds right now are selling for $25 a pound. And Ross Rounds run right at 8 ounces per ring. So
Yeah.
2 rings makes a pound.
Yeah, but I'm not in the USA. I'm
Oh,
in Europe.
oh, well, it's kind of hard then.
Here, one kilogram is $2.50
$2.50.
per cube.
Oh,
So my question over there, Don.
Sure, go ahead.
pardon me? Go ahead.
So, okay, so it's a question about harvesting honey.
Yes.
We got a good honey flow going on right now, and taking a bunch of honey off my hives. Should I go into the brood chamber and take any honey that's in there also?
Are you trying to harvest honey?
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't take it out of the brood chamber unless it's all honey on the outside, because you don't want to get cocoons up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. If it was on the outer frames, it'd be okay to take that, and like you mentioned, maybe space it out and put some new frames in there for them for the queen to start laying in.
Well, that's the best thing to do. If you're wanting to build a strong hive, I've already done several of mine out here, is I'm running double deeps and I'm checkerboarding them. I take 8 frames that's in the hive. I run 8 frame stuff. I'm taking 4 frames from the bottom, putting them in a second deep box, and alternating 1 frame that's drawed out or got comb, brood, or honey, and rotating. So I'm running double deep, 16 frames. But honey in the brood chamber, there's nothing wrong with it. You can take it out.
And that's basically taken out to give her more space down there.
That's basically what you're doing it for. But you can harvest the honey. There's nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
This year they're just packing honey everywhere, and the majority of the hives are not building populations because they're just making too much honey.
I'm over in Northwest Florida, so yeah, they're real busy.
Well, we getting all kind of people calling. Has anybody else got anything about hive beetles or ants? Or is anybody just plain afraid to use that vaporizer? They approved it in the USA now, but people's been using it in Europe for years, and Canada.
I plan to start treating with that here soon.
It's the cheapest way to treat your hive, and it's 100% mite kill.
Sounds good to me.
Well, if you take the alternatives, the softer treatments is still going to run you, if you're buying them from the bee supply house, $2 to $5 per hive. And when you compare that to 100% mite kill for 2 to 3 cents or 4 cents a hive, it makes more sense to do it that way.
About the material, I mean, you can just go to the hardware store and buy the what is the wood?
It's sold as a wood bleach, but
Wood bleach.
I buy mine from Amazon, and I buy it in small amounts, but I'm thinking more maybe buying it in larger bags and switching from bleaching frames out with chlorine bleach to just using oxalic acid to bleach my frames out.
Ah.
That way it gets a good sterilization, puts them back to brand new look, and if there's any hive beetle damage to it, if there's any wax moth or larvas or eggs in those little holes in the sidebars, it'll absolutely kill them. So when a hive does crash on you, you need to do something to clean those frames up. Now somebody come up here yesterday and they run plastic foundation in theirs and was asking me about it. I have never liked using plastic. I don't use it. I use wood and wax, but they was wanting to know how to clean them. And one of my students several years ago took them to the car wash and used a pressure washer and just blew them to pieces and cleaned them up. And when you take them back home, you got to get them dry. And he takes a paintbrush and just paints liquid wax on them. And just take the paintbrush and just like you're scrubbing it, scrub it all over on all them cells and put it in the center of your beehive and hope for the best.
That's what I use as the right cell.
Yeah. I personally don't care for it because I'm going the more natural way, and to cut cells out, I believe you get a whole lot better queen. As far as lasting and production, much better than grafting. And grafted queens, you know, everybody's doing it. Less people are cutting the natural cells out. That's why I try not to do any advertising, because it's hard for me to keep a supply of queens up here.
I also use the plastic foundations, the ones from Man Lake, and they worked out pretty good.
I guess if people have large operations, that probably would have some benefit to it, but to me, that's why I got into making my own foundation. Now I start selling the foundation mills because people want clean wax, and I don't like plastic in the hive, personally. It's like the hives that come out several years ago, complete plastic hives. More people was losing bees because of the moisture buildup in them. They sweat too much.
I think for me it's a matter of convenience, you know, being able to sling the honey out and throw them back in there without really damaging them that much.
How many hives do you run?
I only have 4.
4? Well,
Yeah.
it might surprise you. You say convenience and for slinging the honey out. I've showed students right here natural drawed comb in an extractor that has no motor on it, a crank. You can sling the honey out just as efficiently without throwing that comb out. What throws the comb out is people get that thing and they turn it up on high speed. It's just like a wash machine on a spin dryer. You know, it spins them out, all the weight goes to one side. So if you take your time and spin it one way and watch down inside of your extractor, when you see honey coming out, reverse it. Do that about 6 times. You can get those frames dry with no foundation. I mean, no fishing wire, no reinforcing, just natural comb in the supers. Now, another thing about comb is I'm showing students right now that put a full sheet of new waxing or a comb that's already drawn and a starter strip in a hive. And they'll actually see the starter strip, the bees jump on it and draw it out faster. And if you put a starter strip in there, go to that first and you'll find a queen 90% of the time on that new comb, on that starter strip, laying.
Yeah, don't have you tried peroxide acid? It's basically peroxide and acetic acid to clean frames and the beehives.
I thought I'd have a whole bunch of hard questions tonight. You don't ask me some of those hard questions, I'm not going to learn nothing.
I have a question for you, Don.
Okay.
I have a hive that I didn't look at for about 2 weeks. I came back and it appeared to have a torn open queen cell. It definitely has a capped queen cell. I didn't see the queen in it, but it looks like, can I split that now and like a walkaway split with that capped queen cell?
Well, if you have a capped queen cell and it's not cut on the side and it's fully developed and you got some bees in there, yes, you can make a split, but you're going to have to look. If you got one that's torn down on the side, more than likely you've got a queen running around in there.
Yeah, I saw.
Did you find the queen?
I didn't find the queen, but I saw lots of capped brood and lots of not eggs, but larvae, little commas.
Well, if you got, what I try to do is look for eggs. You want to find an egg in a cell that's almost dry. That tells you that's within an hour to 24 hours. If it's got white milk in the bottom, then you're going 2 to 3 days. But if the hive is quiet, more than likely you've got a queen in there, whether it's a virgin queen or a mated queen. Now you can have the mother queen and a virgin walking around the same frame. Don't think that ain't going to happen.
But I saw no brood. I saw no drone cone. There's no drones.
Well, you got other hives.
Are they going to make the drones?
Well,
I've got 2 hives, but there's no.
If you're going to have a swarm, they're going to make drone comb 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. But if you've got a swarm cell in there, you either got a damaged queen and they're trying to replace her, or they're going to swarm. If the hive is crowded, if it's backfilled with a lot of honey, they're going to make some cells. That's the whole key to making natural drawed cells. Crowd the bees.
Okay. I will start looking for drones then, and once I start seeing drones, they're getting ready. They're preparing to swarm. Is that right?
Right, but not all the time. If you've got other hives out there and you got the right condition, they will get up and go. Now, if you've got a cell that's already sealed, take that frame, put it in a nuke box. Do you have extra nuke boxes made?
Yes, I do. I have a nuke box.
Do you have regular bottom boards on it, or do you have a round hole like I'm using?
It's a bottom. It's a solid board.
It's a solid bottom board.
Yeah.
Does it have a regular bottom board entrance to it, or does it have a solid bottom with a hole cut in the side of the box, or the front of the box where it uses an entrance?
Well, I should have told you. I have 2 top bars, so the setup's a little different on the top bar.
Well, I'm no expert on top bar hives, but you know, the only thing you can do is if you can put it in another box, shake enough bees in there with that one frame that's got the cell, and put a screen over the entrances for at least 2 days. Then you should be good. That the bees will orient back to that box then.
Okay, 2 days, 48 hours.
Yep.
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you, sir.
I run 200 to 500 hives here, and a lot of my stands are 8 foot or 12 foot long, and they might have 10, 12 5-frame nukes on it. I'll make a split on one. I move it 5 foot to the next row and put one in there. I don't take them down the road 2 miles.
Okay. I was going to move it about 150 yards.
Yeah, you don't need to. And if you feel like that's what you want to do, it ain't going to hurt nothing, but you can do it.
Okay.
There's a lot of people put a lot of things out there that's totally unnecessary.
My thing that I talked to you earlier about is those queen cups that they like to make. It
Right?
seems like every time I... Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
It seems like every time I go in there to check, there's always a queen cup.
Well, what kind of bees are you running? Russian?
Carnioleans?
They shouldn't be making cups. Russians make cups and they keep them there most of the time as emergency.
I just cut them out every time I see them.
Why?
I don't know.
Does it make you nervous?
I think it does. I don't want to. I don't want them to swarm. I think that's what my head's telling me.
Well, not necessarily. If no matter what kind of hive you run, if you go all the way down to the bottom board every 14 days, if you have a queen cell, make a split. They should be making cups. Russians make cups and they keep them there most of the time as an emergency.
Oh man.
I just cut them out every time I see them.
Why? Well, you're cutting all your cells off. That's like taking money and throwing it on the ground.
I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want them to swarm. I think that's what my head's telling me.
Well,
Now
not
what I do.
necessarily. If no matter what kind of hive you run, if you
Sorry about that. I lost you.
okay, well, if more than one person is talking, we're going to get a bunch of feedback. So watch that when one person is not talking, then if you need to talk, you can go ahead and talk, and that way we won't get a bunch of feedback. But as far as queen cells, you know, you're in there cutting cups or you're pushing them down. You wouldn't take a $100 bill and drop it on the ground every time you went in your hive. That's basically what you're doing. So if you go in that hive every 14 days, you could prevent swarming. If you're going to have a hive that strong, it's always on the borderline of swarming.
I usually check it every week because I go up there, I cut the grass, and I take care of the area. So I check on them.
Well, you're going to see bases that, you know, every 7 days. I mean, that's not, you know, nothing big. But 14 days, if you're in there every 14 days, from the time that you look, count 14 days, it's going to take 16 days for a queen to hatch. So if you're in there in 14 days, you can get some nice ripe cells and transfer them into nukes or into another box. I don't never throw good queen cells on the ground.
Grass, I take care of the area. So I check on them.
Well, you're going to see bases that, you know, every
Don, I got a question. I bought those
Okay.
queens from you earlier, and I pulled some bees out of that hive to get 4 nukes going, and they're up and running. And so I thought I kind of weakened that hive a little bit, and I poured the feed to it. And I looked, and sure enough, there were a bunch of queen cells in there. And I cut some out, and I put them into nukes. And today, one of them hatched. And there's a virgin queen running around in there. Very hard to find, but there weren't too many bees in there, so I did find her. In the past, I've had trouble with these queens coming back. Is that a problem?
coming back. What do you mean coming back?
Mated.
Oh, well, now that's one reason a lot of people don't get into queen rearing. You can make queens, you can make a lot of virgin queens, but wherever you live, you know, you got predators out there. You got purple martins, you've got dragonflies, you've got European hornets, you've got a lot of predators out there. So if you don't have a lot of trees around, you know, for them to fly through and kind of break the flying pattern up, it's always a risk. But at least you did something right. You got queens to hatch.
Finally had queens hatch for the first time.
Well, if you had more than one cell on there, you can go back in there and once one hatches, you can go into another box.
Okay. I've had queens hatch before where I've moved the whole frame, but this was the first time I've cut them out.
Oh, well, you're learning.
Thank
Step
you
by
so much.
step, and pretty soon you won't be buying queens.
Yeah, I wanted to raise some of my own. These are not the coolest bees. They're kind of hot, but I wanted to try it anyway, being the cells were there.
Well, if you got some bees from me, they're going to mate with those drones, and you're going to mellow those bees out.
Okay, that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, the main thing is to bring some new stock, good gentle stock, or stock that you know a person that has bees, and let them mix with yours.
Okay, thanks.
Will purple martins eat bees?
Oh yeah,
Did not know that.
yeah. I've set out there, and sometimes starlings fly through there, and we got a bunch of cardinals. And certain times of the afternoon, they're in there, they're grabbing bees. Those big black bumblebees are another predator.
And lizards.
Don't be bashful. Ask your question.
If a hive has a virgin queen, will that in a nuke, will that nuke make drones for the virgin queen to mate with?
Usually, by the time you have a virgin queen in there, it's going to be too late for that hive. You've got to have drones that's going to be 2 to 3 weeks prior to your virgin queens in the same hive. Or you got to have other hives, or you got to have hives that are feral or bees in the neighborhood.
Okay. It's still worth trying to split.
Well, if you got a queen cell, I would try to split it and hope there's wild bees somewhere. If you don't
Yeah,
try,
what's the worst that could happen? I mean, you could all even if it didn't go well, you could eventually if you didn't mate that queen.
you could always buy a queen and put in there.
Yeah, you could buy a queen.
Well, I mean, it's good to buy a queen. The whole purpose of doing hangouts and stuff is to educate you to the point you can make your own queens.
Do you sell queens year round?
Do what?
Do you sell queens almost year round, or?
Oh yeah, I sell, year round. I sell nukes, queens, right up into the end of November. We've got probably a half a dozen queens right now. I caught queens today.
Do you mail the queens? Can you mail them?
Oh yeah, I've mailed them. I've got quite a few people that's been on Hangouts here that's got queens from me, and they go through the mail pretty good. I mean, you're always going to take a chance when you mail bees, but we don't have that much problem mailing queens. I mailed them all 48 states with not much problems. Out west, it's a little harder sometimes if the weather gets up to 90 degrees or higher. If the bees sit in the truck, sometimes they don't do as well. But all bees shipped here are shipped in flat rate boxes, priority mail, and they're insured. So if you have a problem, you can make a claim at the post office.
I'm in Missouri. Don mailed my queens on Monday, and I got them on Wednesday.
They was in good shape when you got them, right?
I had most of them in good shape. There was one that I had a problem with, but I talked to the post office, and they said that you can put a claim on that.
Well, if they leave here, and then sometimes postal employees, they're pitching these boxes around if you ever go to the post office, and stand at a counter and watch them. They take these boxes and they don't even turn around and step. They just flip them into a cart that's 5 foot, 10 foot behind them. So once they're on the counter, that's out of my hands. But as you know, all the queens that go out of here, we have very few that have problems with them. You're dealing with the human factor there.
Yeah, these nukes took off and they just grew like crazy with those queens. I put them in 5-frame nukes. They're double stacked already, and they're just going like crazy.
Well, you probably bought bees from other people. How's the bees compared to other people's bees?
I just had 2 hives here.
But as the queens that you have here, you have very few that have problems with them.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
Hey, I finally got on.
With the human factor there.
Finally got on. Just want to say a shout out to
Off, and they just grew like crazy with those queens. I put them in 5-frame nukes. They're double stacked already. And
if someone's running on YouTube at the same time we're doing a hangout, we're going to get a bunch of feedback, so you'll have to mute one or the other.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
I just 2 hives here.
Is there a reason why?
You have very few that have problems with them.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
Hey, I finally got on.
With the human factor there.
Finally got on. Just want to say a shout out to
Off, and they just grew like crazy with those queens. I put them in 5. Do you have a YouTube window open, Dean?
Yeah. It's Dean.
If someone's running YouTube at the same time, we're going to get feedback, and we'll be hearing repeat deja vus.
So, Don, can you explain some more about the small hive beetle? How do you treat, when?
I have a video on YouTube where you can use a political sign and Crisco and boric acid. That's the safest way to kill beetles.
We don't have right now small hive beetles, but we expect them very soon. So I'm preparing myself.
Well, you don't need to prepare, because if you don't have them, you're probably not going to get them. If you have a strong hive, it usually takes care of hive beetles. Hive beetles usually goes into weak hives. Same thing with wax moth. Wax moth is basically people that's not been in a hive often enough. The bees have swarmed, the hive got weak, and then wax moths take over.
Yeah.
Brooke, you going to ask a question tonight? I'm hoping you're going to ask some good questions tonight.
What I did yesterday, I put a honey super on the beehive.
Right.
I don't want to say they're getting honey bound, but I found a few frames that started to get a good amount of honey on them, on the brood frames.
Right.
So I figured I put the honey super on. That way they can move it up and do what they need to do.
Well, sometimes they don't move it up. This year, I'm having the very same problem. They're keeping it in the brood chamber, and they don't want to move it up. That's why I started doing checkerboarding, just running a double deep and reversing frames. Some years they'll move it up, and some years they won't.
I actually reversed the boxes this time. I put the top one down below, because it seems like the second box that I was telling you about earlier,
right,
they actually had that build up more than the bottom box, and that was the first box.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that works good. You just have to try what works in your area. I personally can't do that too easily here, because we use a large staple to staple our bottoms to our hive boxes. Because if we move a hive, I don't want to have the bottom board falling off and bees go all over the place. So we try to keep them fastened up. We basically have to change out the whole hive when we do that to reverse them, or stack an extra box on top.
They've been building pretty good though, and the queen's actually laying really good.
Well, that's good. You're doing the right step. Well, Brooke has got problems with her computer, but I see she can type. If you got a problem with things, you can type, and I'll see if we can get you. This is the first time in about 3 weeks that my Hangout is working good.
I think it's tricky, but once you get the hang of it, you know.
Well, I hope to get the hang of this pretty soon. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks.
Well, I'm only 30, and it's hard for me because I never did this.
Well, you know, I'm 73, and my grandkids don't do Hangouts. They do texting. So I don't have anybody other than students drop by. Some do the Hangouts, and some will help.
For some reason, Don, I don't get your emails anymore. I have to get my invites from someone else, and most of the time, those invites take me to a YouTube only, and I can't get into the chat until someone posts a link in your Google Sheets or Google Hangouts, wherever it is, for the link for the video.
Well, what I've been doing, if you send I guess it's like a friend request on Google Hangouts, I add you and I put you in there, you should get an invite. But if you have YouTube, if you subscribe to that, you automatically get a notice. Because we have probably, 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers on YouTube or more. I don't keep up too much with it. My grandson, he'll tell me how many I'm not getting on, or the students tell me.
I do get the YouTube notices, but I think you have to be a friend or something on your page, on your Google page.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I get these requests as friends or join my circles and stuff like that. If you send something like that, I just put you on. So when I click on invite, everybody that's on that thing should get an invite. If I'm missing somebody, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to learn this whole operation here.
Because that's how I actually got the invites, is once I added you and you added me to the circles and all that.
Yeah. Well, that's what we have to tell other people how to do it.
The link for the invite didn't really take you to the Google Hangout spot to where you had to actually pick the Hangout.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, I went to the Google Hangouts page and then went to the on-air Hangouts, and it was right there, and you click the join button from there.
Well, if we get enough smart people in here, we can get enough people here to come in regular. I'm only here to answer questions, help you if I can. You don't have to do things my way.
Don, about the feeding, you mentioned that you will be using only honey, right?
Losing honey?
You will be using only honey. You will be feeding only honey this year.
I'm going more and more feeding honey, because a pound of honey is like feeding about 20-25 pounds of sugar. And the honey has a lot more nutritional value. The bees will build up better and can maintain it a lot better. I know it makes a whole lot better queens when you're feeding honey.
Yeah, I'm using sugar, but I add some vitamins and minerals, and I have seen tremendous results.
Well, I've done a video on YouTube about mixing my formulas to build brood up by using essence of oils, using wintergreen, spearmint, tea tree oil, and a little bit of lemongrass. And sometimes we use eucalyptus, and eucalyptus in the beehive also helps fight your small hive beetle.
Yeah.
Hey, Don.
Yes.
This is my first time on here. Can we ask questions about anything?
You ask questions about anything about bees.
Okay. First thing I want to do is shout out to 628 Dirt Rooster. I follow him on YouTube also. My question is, springtime, I'm in Ohio. Springtime, a friend of mine had 2 deeps, and they were just packed full of bees. I opened it up, and there's honey and brood in the top and the bottom. What should I do? Take care of that.
I'd make a split is what I would do. Are you running 10 frame stuff up there?
Yeah, that I have 10 frames, and what I found like 5 frames that had queen cells closed, and I tried to make 3 different splits, and it didn't work.
If you got a queen cell and if you don't bump it, it's going to work. Now, I used to live in Ohio, and the main reason I moved south is to run bees longer and be a little bit more successful. And I lived in the northern part of Ohio and listened to a lot of beekeepers over the years. Try this, try that. And if you make a mistake or they give you bad information, now you wait till next spring to correct and make your adjustments. So that's another reason I'm trying to do these hangouts, is to tell you what works, what don't work. And if you got a 10 frame double deep, you got 18 splits sitting there right in front of you. Because once you have that queen cell that's sealed, just take 1 frame with the bees, put it in a nuke box, seal it up for 2 days, and then you've got a nuke. You've got to run the nuke. Put your 4 frames of foundation in it, and it's up and running.
So when you do that split like that, you close the box up completely?
I put a screen over it and leave them closed for 2 days. They have to reorient, because if you transfer them into another box, all the field bees are going to migrate back to the parent hive. The only ones that's going to stay in the hive are going to be your new bees that haven't been out and done an orientation flight. So if you get a frame in there or 2 frames, and 90% of it is basically foraging bees, they fly back. Now you've got brood that's going to be open, and if you got a night that's cold, it's going to get chill brood.
Well, I watched one of your videos, and you was talking about that chilled brood. When I took those 3 or 4 frames that had queen cells on them, I put them in 2 nukes and a 10 frame, and then wouldn't you know it, the next 3 days was really, really cold, and none of them come out. So I'm thinking they might have got chilled.
Well, that's what it sounds like. Now, if you're up there and you want to make early splits, are you running wood and wax, or are you running plastic frames?
I'm running a wood frame with the plastic foundation.
All right, then now you have a problem there. If you have wood and wax, all you need to do is cut from the wax foundation, cut the queen cell out, just cut a plug about 1 inch wider than your queen cell. Set it between a frame of honey and the wall of your nuke box. Shake another frame of bees in it, put a screen over it. Now you're going to get 0 amount of chill brood, because it only takes 1 cup of bees to keep that queen cell warm. When you put a frame of brood in there, you run the risk of chill brood if the temperature drops below 55.
Well, the 10 frame I had, I probably had 5 frames of bees already in it before I put the one with the queen cell in it. And I just ordered a new queen, just put it in yesterday, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I want to sort of follow your footsteps and start doing nukes.
If you're taking a queen cell, first what I would do is, if you don't want to use regular wax, slowly sell nukes, get rid of that plastic stuff. You can't cut cells out of it. Then when you get wooden wax, all you need is a queen cell. Shake a frame or two of bees in there. You don't need to feed that queen cell. You don't need no brood. You don't need nothing but a queen cell that's sealed and some bees. They'll cluster around that queen cell. And you got the honey right there, so they got something to eat. When that queen hatches and she comes back and starts to lay on that frame, go to your hive that's real strong, take 2 frames out that's got bees that are hatching. Set them in there. That hive is like adding 6 pounds of bees to it. You run no risk of chill brood. You don't lose no bees that way. The people that say you need a frame of brood, a frame of pollen, and a frame of honey are hobby beekeepers that want to make 1 frame or 2 frames. That's one reason why when I go to a bee yard and people pay me to do a split, and a lot of people are running 10 frame stuff, double deep, I make 18 splits right in front of them, and they take.
Okay.
You run less brood risk that way.
I also bought a package of bees and put them in 10 frame. What is the best way for me to, what I want to do is put them in nukes once they get filled up in the bottom brood. Do I just keep an eye on them and look for queen cells and then make a split off of that?
If you put a package in a 5 frame nuke, it's going to build up 3 or 4 times faster than if you put them in an 8 frame or a 10 frame hive. The biggest mistake people get is they go out and buy a package, they dump it in a 10 frame hive, the next day they go out there and throw a super on it and they think they're going to make honey. You create so much room in there, the bees get demoralized, and the next thing is, if you get cool nights, they cluster up and you're losing brood. If I was you, I would convert everything into 5 frame nukes or go to 8 frame. If you've got a table saw, build your 8 frame stuff. You can take a divider, take a router, and put a 1/4 inch slot down the center on the inside of your 10 frame, and then you put a piece of paneling in there and a piece of plywood on the bottom. And now you've got 2 5 frame nukes. You drill a hole on the front of one and the back on the other, and you got 2 nukes. You can start early, and the heat transfers from one side to the other, and you can make nukes a whole lot faster.
Okay, another question. I know I got a lot of questions. If somebody else want to pipe in, go ahead. You talk about running your nukes through the winter.
Right.
Now, is that just 1 deep, or do you have 2 deeps to get them through?
I run a single 5 frame nuke. In September, I take a lot of my 8 frame hives. If they're good and strong, I make 2 or 3 nukes out of them, and I run them through the winter. I run a hive top feeder on top of them, and November or December, if they get a little bit light, I feed honey. And that's the next trick. People don't listen. They feed sugar water. And if you feed sugar water November through February in northern climates, you kill your bees. You've got too much moisture in there. If you got honey you're not using, feed the honey. And never dilute honey when you feed it back to bees. It'll ferment.
No.
I got a question for you, Don, about the boxes and stuff like that.
Okay.
What is your opinion on using cedar?
What is my opinion?
What is your opinion on using cedar as the wood?
Well, my opinion is common sense. Your grandmother and your mother probably put cedar in the closets to keep out moths because it's a repellent and a pesticide.
I thought so, but you know, another thing that I was thinking too, but I seen a lot of these hives online, people are making out of cedar. I'm thinking to myself, how can they do that? Won't it hurt the bees? You know?
Well, wise people losing bees and some people are not. I mean, I'm only trying to show common sense beekeeping, nothing high tech. Anything I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sell you nothing. I'm giving you advice of what I've made mistakes on, what works and what don't work. You can use it or you don't have to use it. In my opinion, anybody goes out and buys a pretty cedar hive, it looks pretty, but you're not going to keep bees in it. Because when the sun hits cedar, it outgasses. And if you look up cedar, when you press cedar, you've got a very potent pesticide, cedar pesticide. That's the only wood that I don't use. I mean, I use all kinds of wood that I saw, and I use red oak, white oak, poplar, sweet gum, pines, different varieties of pine. I don't use hemlock, and I don't use cedar.
Yeah, I was just curious. I saw that, and like you said, it looks pretty, but I never knew how bad it could be. You know?
The only thing, it looks good and it smells good. It's just the same thing. Anybody out there that has bees, they know the principles of bees, but they see this new deal they got out here, this flow hive, where you set your jar there and it fills a jar up full of honey. When you can do that, I'm going to sell everybody a bridge in New York. I'll give them a good deal on it.
I actually got kicked off of a Facebook group for questioning that flow hive.
Well, if you're a 1 year beekeeper or a 2 or 3 year beekeeper, you know the bees cap the honey. And if you take the caps off, the honey comes out. And if you're using their principle they're trying to show you, those caps are going to accumulate somewhere. So something's going to get clogged up. And the next thing that don't look right is a jar of honey out in the field. If you put a jar of honey in my bee yard, you're going to have it full of bees in no time flat.
Well, I made the question about it. I said you got these new beekeepers. I'm new too. I didn't fall for that gimmick. But you got these new people that are going out buying this because they think, oh, I'll have honey instantly out of my hive. You know?
Well, the same thing came about when we come out with the screen bottom board. And the next 2 to 3 years after that, everybody's losing hives. And people still believe that stuff. I don't run them. You couldn't pay me to put a screen bottom on my beehives. You got to think common sense. Out in the woods, they don't have metal on the lids in the beehives in the trees. They don't have screen bottom boards. They don't have queen excluders. They don't have all this junk. People like to market whatever they can sell you. See, I'm not trying to sell you one thing. I'm trying to give you some good advice. Common sense beekeeping. Hard work. That makes healthy hives.
Yeah. I'm wintering 12 frame nukes, 12 frame boxes, and I keep the opening small, but I have ventilation holes on the crown board, and that way there's a small drift from the bottom, but all the moisture gets out from the top. And that way, last winter I didn't have any moisture problems, any.
Well, what I'm doing right here is I'm drilling a hole under the handhold, and I'm putting a 1 inch hole there with a hardware cloth on it. So every box all the way up has a hole for ventilation. But you mentioned a 12 frame hive. I haven't seen a large hive like that since I was 12 years old. Daydant used to make what they called a jumbo. It was 14 inches deep. And they stopped using it because the size of it, it was hard to work. But, you know, if it's working for you, bees only go so wide. So, you know, if you get too wide, they're not going to work the outside frames as well.
In the beginning, I tried with my smoker. I'd have a heck of a time trying to light it, but that one video you did where you actually roll the cardboard and that stuff up,
Right.
I took that and I have no trouble anymore lighting my smoker with it.
Well, I'm trying to put out as much common sense stuff as I possibly can. And I was amazed actually the year that I done that was about 6 years ago. We had some beekeepers come up here that claimed they was master beekeepers, and they come out with this little thing and they try to light their smoker. In 10 minutes it was out. And I said, I'm not a master beekeeper, but let me show you how to light a smoker. And one of my students actually videotaped that. And I thought everybody knew how to light a smoker. I prefer using pine straw or pine needles and a little bit of cardboard on the bottom, and then put your pine needles on top. And once you get it going a little bit, get another handful and pack it down. And then blow the smoke on your wrist. It should be absolutely cold. If it has any heat to it, or if you're using wood shavings or a bunch of other stuff, and you blow one ember out and it hits a queen, you've got a dead queen. Now, if you're just running old production queens, you don't have a problem. But if you're breeding queens and you buy breeder queens, you're going to pay $250 or $350 a queen. And you start blowing embers on that and you kill a $300 queen, you know, it don't take you long to start learning how to light a smoker up.
I actually use the wood shavings from my planer.
Yeah.
But I put a layer of grass on the top as like the top layer.
You got to be very, very careful on that. Now, did you watch the video what I put out when you use planer shavings with walnut? You can actually use a little bit of walnut shavings once a month or twice a month, and the oil from that walnut shavings will kill mites.
Okay, yeah, I remember that now. I did see that.
I've done 250 some videos, so it's hard to keep up with a lot of stuff. I try to do more and more videos. It's just time consuming. I've got to do a video on people come up here and was trying to ask me why there's so much space and how to space those frames out in a box, and whether it's an 8 frame, a 10 frame, or 5 frame. Most people don't know there's a 1 inch to 1 1/8 inch space there. That's put there for a reason. That's to set your queen cage in when you set up a new hive. That's what it's for. So if you're not putting a queen cage, the smartest thing to do is push all the frames to one side, then center them so you have equal distance on each side. Don't leave wide gaps between the frames. That causes burr comb and a lot of propolis to build up on the sidebars. I know that's very basic for everybody, but I thought I would just put it out there.
That's what we need, is very basic information. For some of us new people, your videos are really good and they help a lot. But sometimes for a real new person, it just goes over your head for a little while until you get out and experience it and try to make it happen.
Well, that's the whole purpose of trying to share information. I mean, it's simple stuff that people don't think about.
When are you going to do your ebooks?
I've had 2 or 3 people try to do them for me, but I don't know, I must be that boring a person, they don't follow through. I've had 2 people start a book, and they'll come over, do interviews and stuff, and then they lose interest. I'm not a writer, so I have to depend on either students or somebody who's doing it. I have a fellow right now that's doing DVDs for me out of Toronto, Canada. He's supposed to be down and shoot another series of videos to put up my 2nd series. And they're all going to be easy to follow learning videos. Nothing complicated. Brooke, you got to turn your mic on. You have to get one of those teenagers to reboot your thing there and show you how to do that there.
What type of battery is good for those oxalic vaporizers?
What size battery? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what size and what type?
Well, if you just have a few hives, you can use a lawnmower battery. And a lawnmower battery will use probably you could do about 8 to 10 hives. What I'm using is either a marine battery or a deep cycle battery. I have about 4 batteries here that we alternate. And while 1 or 2 of them is being used, we're charging the other ones. And
That's
a deep cycle battery will do about 40 to 50 hives.
because that's one thing that's driving me nuts is the price of some of these batteries. I look at them, it's just too much just to do one hive.
Well, don't you have a lawnmower?
Pull your car up there, or take your car battery out for a day or something.
Yeah. Lawnmower batteries or your four-wheeler battery, that's more than enough. Or motorcycle battery, it's just a small little plug in there. It's a glow plug. It don't take that many amps.
Okay.
Heck, I think you could buy one of them adapters that will plug into the cigarette lighter of your car and just extend that out to connect it to Don's little device there with a little bit of ingenuity. You only need the 12 volts to get that thing going, so a cigarette lighter will provide the power for you.
Yeah. The units that I have that I'm selling, I have a fellow that has a machine shop, and he builds them for me. And those cords on there are probably 12 foot long, so you could pull your lawnmower up and actually use it pretty good.
I was thinking of using wire attached to my car battery, almost like an extension cord with alligator clips.
Well, you could use what do they call that stuff? Sound wire for speakers, because it doesn't pull but about 4 or 5 amps. And you could get 25-foot extension cord, cut the ends off, and use it. Because on the early models that we done about 12 or 14 years ago, he was using lamp cord, which is just like a braided copper wire.
You still have some of those things for sale? Are you selling regularly?
We keep 3 or 4 of the vaporizers in stock. I don't stock the foggers because those you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. I usually keep 2 to 3 wax mills here all the time, and the wax mills I do free training on it. When you leave here, you run the wax mill that you're going to buy, and you will make good foundation when you leave. Now, if you have a wax mill that you bought somewhere else, I'll train you to run that wax mill, but I don't train you for free. Do a wax class, $100 on your machine. See, there's a lot of people out there, Kelly's and Man Lake, a lot of them are starting to sell them. And they're going anywhere from about $2,800 to $3,500. Mine is a good machine. It's a metal machine. It's a $2,000 machine or a mill. And the commercial one, which has got better bearings in it, it's more of a cast framework, and it's $2,500. And most people that's bought them has got their money out of them in 90 days to 6 months. I had a lady buy one just to roll foundation and roll the foundation up and to make hand-rolled candles and paid for it in 90 days. The hand crank mill will do 1,200 sheets a day. And if you got clean wax, you can sell it. I sell my wax here $2 a sheet, and I'm not trying to sell it. If you buy a nuke, I'll sell you a half a dozen sheets, and that's it, because we use a lot of wax here.
Speaking about the color of wax, we did our first harvest and we got a bunch of wax out of there, and some of the wax came out nice and golden, and then we got some wax that's just dark wax, and we filtered it several times and can't seem to bring it back to golden color.
Well, if you watched my videos on processing wax, I mentioned I never filter. I got a box down there, and I'll show you all the filters I've tried. I've tried everything that every Tom, Dick, and Harry's put out there. Filter it this way, filter it that way. And the way I'm doing it, you don't waste no filters. If you use coffee filters, you're throwing a percentage of your wax away. If you're using paint strainers, you're throwing a percentage away. I've even used my wife's old sheer curtains. They're the little thin things. You always have a pile of wax left in there. You name it, I've tried it. Old t-shirts. If you process it the way I do it, it'll self-clean. If you got brown wax or really dark wax, you can get it lemon color by using the same process. Change your water out, do it in small batches, don't boil it. Bring it up to a boil, pour it through a strainer. Like a strainer you have in the house to strain your spaghetti or something like that. It's like house screen, reinforced. I use a commercial one, which is bigger. It's about 10 or 12 inches, and it's got wire reinforcing underneath. And I take my hive tool and I press it, and when I put it into the bucket, and I rotate it several times, and I keep pressing it. And you'll get every piece of wax out of it. When those old cocoons are dry and you throw them, you got all your wax. That's why I stopped using solar wax melters. You lose too much wax in a solar wax melter. Anybody else got a good question?
I got one more.
Okay.
I took my entrance reducer off
Okay.
just to get more airflow and stuff in there.
Right.
Is it better to leave it on?
Well, where are you at?
I'm in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Right now, you should be having warm enough weather. What are you running? 8 frame, 10 frame stuff there?
10 frame.
Are they covering all 10 frames?
Pretty much. There's maybe 1 or 2 on the outside, and that's it. But they're blowing up pretty good.
All right. When the bees come into the entrance, is a lot of bees piling up there, or they have to wait till their turn to get in?
I think they're flowing pretty good. I don't think they're waiting.
Well, if they're not having a bunch of bees hanging around waiting to get in, then I'd leave it for a while. If they're starting to back up a little bit where they can't get in and get out fast enough, either widen the entrance reducer out a little bit more or take it out altogether.
Okay. What about the wax from when the brood come out of the new bees come out of their brood?
You're talking about wax cuttings that's falling on the bottom board?
Yeah.
What are you worried about?
Do they clean that up, or what do you do with that?
Well, if you sit in front of your hive and watch them, it looks like dandruff. They're blowing out constantly. Those are wax platelets that's coming off the bees, and they produce that all the time. If they're eating, they're producing it. It's just like humans are producing hair and fingernails. It's just basically a chemical reaction in the body.
Because I seen a lot. I'm sorry, I seen a lot on the bottom board. That's why I was curious.
They normally blow that out. If they're not blowing it out, you got something in there that's obstructing it.
So maybe the entrance reducer? Is that?
If they're not getting enough airflow through, they're not blowing it out. That's
Okay.
the only drawback that I see with an entrance reducer. You'll end up getting wax moth larvae around that reducer because they can't clean it out. But as long as you're getting a flow of bees in and out, and they're not hanging out, bearding out, in Pennsylvania this time of the year, they should be bearding. All right, Brooke is finally asking a question. She wants to know, how often is too often to check a hive? I would go in a hive a minimum of every 14 days. 7 days going in it won't hurt the bees. I'm in and out of my nukes out here and some of my boxes 2 times, 3 times a day on some of them. On nukes, we're running multiple queen cells, so what we're trying to do is, if it's like a twin or a triplet that's too close together to cut, then you have to go in there every 15, 20 minutes. When one queen hatches out, you take the unit and move it to another nuke box. But you're not going to hurt the bees.
You were saying a couple times a day with the nukes?
Well, I'm basically running nukes to make queens. So when I'm cutting cells out, a lot of times you have cells that are so close together you can't cut them out. And if you cut one and you nick the next one or cut the cap, not the cap, the side of the cell out and expose the larva, that one won't hatch. So it's better to put the whole unit in 2 or 3 at a time and go and check them every 15 minutes. Because usually it takes 15 minutes to an hour from one queen to hatch to the other. And if you're too late, the only thing that's going to happen is that another queen is going to come there and cut the side of that cell down. Then you know for sure you've got a queen walking.
Can you kill the queen if you check your hive too much?
Only if you're wearing gloves and a veil. If you wear a veil, you're only going to see about 50% of what you're actually seeing. If you think you're going to get stung in the face, the easiest thing to do is just get some liquid smoke and put a drop or two on your hands. Rub your hands together and rub it all over your face, and you're less likely to get stung in the face.
My only problem is my bees are real friendly. They're nice.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when I was checking on them, I wasn't paying attention, and the bee actually got in between my finger and the frame, and I squished her.
Yeah, you'll get stung that way. That's about the only way you get stung.
Luckily, I had the gloves on because they got me twice.
Well, gloves are going to cause you to get more stings than without gloves. If you look at some of the videos, I've actually put my head or my chin on top of an open hive and bees come boiling out and never get stung in the face. But you can take a pair of gloves that somebody else has already been stung on and just drag them across, and you will see the bees attack that glove. It's because of that sting pheromone. You can actually cause the bees to sting you more.
Yeah, I weed whack. I cut around them. They come out. They look at me, and they pretty much know what it is and what's going on, and they turn right back around.
Yep. Bees can sense fear on you, so try to keep a cool head, and you'll be all right. Well, if nobody else has got any questions, I'm going to head out, and we'll try to set up another hangout next week. So think of some questions you can ask. Appreciate everybody stopping by, and everybody have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay.